Coming up on Tech News today, HP fires apotheker, hires failed gubernatorial candidate. Leave Facebook, lose your life, and would Amazon buy Netflix? We'll talk about all this and more next.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by Cachefly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today for Thursday, September 22nd, 2011. Tech News Today is brought to you by Gazelle, the easy way to sell or recycle the used gadgets lying around your home or office. Don't just sell it, Gazelle it. Gazelle your used gadgets today at Gazelle.com. Welcome to Tech News Today. I'm Tom Merritt.
I'm Sarah Lane.
I'm Iyaz Akhtar.
I'm Jason Howell, right behind Chad.
And this is the show where we tell Chad, down! We're starting the show, Johnson, down! And we also talk about tech news.
That's what we do.
Joining us today, Mr. Ken Denmead from the Wired Geek Dad blog. Also, you help with Geek Mom.
That's true. That's true. We had to create the companion blog because there's so many great geeky moms out there too.
That's awesome.
Do you have a Death Star in your garage?
I really love that sweet Death Star.
It's under construction.
They were selling it cheap on Woot. So.
Is it fully operational though?
Well, it's being rebuilt. You can tell back.
Yeah,
that's no moon.
That's no moon. That's a Death Star in your garage.
It's a Geek Dad garage. You got to have it.
Awesome.
That's awesome. Well, let's kick off with Meg Whitman becoming the new CEO of HP. They announced it after the bell today. It was the worst kept secret of the day. Everybody was reporting on it this morning, and then it came to be true. She is now taking over for Leo Apotheker. Ray Lane becomes executive chairman of the HP board. No relation, as far as we know.
I do have a great uncle Ray, but it's not this one.
Not the same Ray. Okay.
Not as great as this Ray Lane.
He's great in other ways.
The reaction to this has been mixed. CFO Kathy Lesjak, who filled in as an interim CEO when Mark Hurd left last year, rumored now to be leaving. We don't know if that's true or not. The analysts are starting to say, well, we wanted to see Leo Apotheker go. We're not sure that Whitman is the right person to replace him. Criticisms involve that she doesn't have experience in enterprise. She has experience in eBay. She has lots of experience, but just not enterprise level experience, and not a lot of supply chain experience either. And Ken, you pointed this out. Cringely actually predicted this back in February, said because Meg Whitman had lost the governor's race, she wasn't going to have much else to do. Now that she was on the board at HP, that she would, quote, hip check Apotheker out of the way. It looks like she did.
I love it. It's, so we can blame basically the California electorate for these changes today.
Yeah, when you voted Jerry Brown, you had no idea you were voting against Leo Apotheker.
And just when we all got used to saying his last name.
Believe me, nobody says it the same way.
Apotheker.
No. I was saying Apotheker. I was saying Apotheker at first because that's the way I heard it. Then I heard everybody saying Apotheker, so I started saying it that way. Then the Economist podcast said Apotheker, so I give up. Thank goodness he's gone.
Porsche.
Whitman.
Yeah,
that's a name I can say.
That's something we can agree on.
He wasn't around long enough to do some sort of keynote, so we never actually got to hear him say his name.
Now, a lot of folks have suggested that with Meg Whitman taking over, she would reverse all of the previous CEO's policies. Whitman suggested that would not be the case. She said, I'm supportive of the actions announced on August 18th. That's the Personal Systems Group and the acquisition of the Autonomy UK company. She says, but I am now deeply involved and will review the initiatives. Ray Lane, the new executive chairman, said, we will not sell the Personal Systems Group. That's what he told All Things D, indicating that a spinoff was probably the best if they were to get rid of the Personal Systems Group at all. He said the best thing we can do is to get to a decision on the Personal Systems Group as fast as possible. Excuse me, Whitman said this. She said, it's not fine wine. It doesn't get better with age. We've got to get to a decision and communicate it.
Now, Whitman's been on the board of HP since January, so she must have made quite an impression on these guys in 9 months to somehow change, just from being a board member to CEO. It seemed, I know the analysts were saying, okay, well, she doesn't have a lot of experience in this. When she was at eBay, that was a small company. Once it got larger, she didn't seem to quite like that. Kind of started
There's
taking
not a lot of the enterprise knowledge.
So the thing is, will she do a good enough job for this? She's been on the board of Procter & Gamble as well, so maybe she, I mean, there must be some reason. There's a
difference between being on the board and being CEO. I mean, obviously, she's been on the board since January, and she's saying, well, now that I'm CEO, I need to get more involved and find out how these decisions are actually being made.
I just want to like kind of temper what the analysts are saying right away. If they're saying, "Oh, this seems crazy," it's, well, there must be a reason.
They're
It's
not
been
saying
9
it
months.
seems crazy. In fact, they're being very temperate. They're saying it's not a bad decision, but we're concerned that she doesn't have enough experience running an enterprise level company, and she doesn't have any experience with supply chain. And Leo Apotheker had a lot of experience too. In fact, he had more relevant experience, and he didn't do a good job. So the analysts are also not too happy with the board, and she is a member of that board. So it's less about Meg Whitman's capability as a CEO. It's about her fit in this role.
Well, and the whole, people are panicking within HP, so you just want to get Apotheker out of there, and you're not thinking, this is such a knee-jerk. I mean, we talked about this yesterday, and 24 hours is a done deal.
Yeah.
I mean, this happened really quick. Maybe the wheels were in motion for a while, but it seems to be we're panicking, anybody but him.
And as we see, we don't know how much is really going to change. It looks like they're going to continue to pursue a spinoff of the Personal Systems Group. Analyst at Jefferies & Company, Peter Missick, says that corporate takeovers are governed by strict laws in the UK, and it would be nearly impossible for HP to back out of the autonomy deal, which a lot of people have criticized. So a lot may not change at all with her not in charge, except maybe he wasn't as popular with the rest of the staff.
With the rumors yesterday, the stock price went up 6%. Under Apotheker, it dropped 40%, something about that, or 25%.
Right, and they made this announcement after the bell, so we'll see once it's for real. Because a lot of analysts were saying they should have done a search. They should have taken their time and found the right person. This seems a little impulsive. Let's move on to the Facebook F8 conference, their developer conference that's going on here in the San Francisco area. And Mark Zuckerberg, well, actually, Andy Samberg came out imitating Mark Zuckerberg at the beginning of the keynote. A nice way to get through the numbers boring part of a keynote, to have a comedian come out and impersonate you and poke fun at your own company.
Introduce some concepts that people wish were real.
Yeah.
Actually, like the slow poke, where you could take away a poke. It's like, that's a good idea.
Yeah, it seems it was funny, and then it wasn't funny. But that's kind of how Mark Zuckerberg jokes tend to go.
Yeah,
so it's an accurate impression, you say?
Well, I just mean it's like it was going on too long, like a bad SNL skit.
That's what he knows.
Well, that's where he must have wrote all his own material then. Yeah. So
Leo
1 minute of funny and 3 minutes of, can we move on now?
Yeah.
Leo suggested that was on purpose so that Zuckerberg didn't look horrible when he came out. That you wanted Samberg to be good right off the top and then get worse and worse and worse, so you were happy to see Mark Zuckerberg when he came out.
It's quite possible.
And Zuckerberg was good.
He's polished up since last year.
Training. I think he wants to take over the Steve Jobs, smooth, suave CEO role now.
He was definitely doing his best Jobs impression. He had the white text on black bullet points. He repeated them
3 times.
He didn't quite say, "We think you're really gonna love it." He didn't do one more thing, but he did a good job. Here's what he announced. Let's actually get to the important part, right? Timeline is a new element to the profile that you can sign up for that will collect all of a user's stories in a page, much like your existing wall, but organized chronologically and highlighting the most important events in your life. You can actually add previous events from the past to it, as well as having it collect all of the things. You can pull things out, you can edit it, you can curate it, but will automatically generate and be enabled for mobile devices. And include things like a timeline on the right, so you can go to a certain month or a certain year. You can even pull up a map that will show where all of the events on your timeline happen, so you can see all the places you've been and what you did there.
Speaking of Zuckerberg's performance, when he was talking about the timeline, he said specifically, we really, this is all stuff that evokes emotion. We want you to be happy to be here. We want you to feel like this is home for you. I mean, I think Facebook has realized for some time now that they had to change the stale atmosphere of Facebook, so people didn't feel like it was a chore to sort of catch up. That's how I've felt about Facebook for a long time. Everyone's there, but it's not really all that much fun. It certainly doesn't feel like home. It certainly doesn't seem good looking. And they've really put a lot of thought into reworking, the visual and emotional aspect of this.
Jeff Jarvis' reaction to this was, Facebook just upped the ante. Leave Facebook, lose your life. They got everything in there.
They've just added all the functionality of iMovie and iPhoto into Facebook.
And in a much easier way, because you're already, I mean, a lot of Facebook users are already contributing all this stuff. They're just saying, hey, let's take it and aggregate it. Let's put these videos in the proper context, and let's have an algorithm to make sure that it all, you know, is presented in a easy to consume way. Now, I'm not sure I'm comfortable having Facebook be the place that I trust to hold all this information about me, because Facebook is not encrypting it. Facebook can access this anytime they want. Facebook can change their terms of service and sell this information to advertisers in certain ways, even if it's not horrible ways.
But Facebook has always had
I want this information
ability to
under
do that.
my control. No, you're right. Facebook is always, I'm not saying Facebook has changed in any way, but I'm like, if I'm going to take the leap and start adding a bunch of information and using this all the time, I want them to give me full control over it, and they haven't done that.
When you take a look at this thing, I mean, whether or not it makes you nervous about putting things on Facebook, I think a lot of people are just going to see this and go, oh, this looks really neat, a nice way to use, a nice way to present yourself to everybody. Because Facebook still, they made for themselves this morning saying this is about identity. And it really is. When you go to this page and you go backwards and you go back further, oh, look at this person as a kid. He was a real person, all this information there. I think a lot of people aren't going to even think about the idea of data portability on this, because what service is going to allow you to even import all of this stuff in the same kind of fashion? So I think a lot of services might start going, okay, look, we got to figure out how to import this kind of data. Like maybe even something like Google Plus, eventually, if you could be able to take this data out, because like Jeff Jarvis was saying, you're locked in. Because this is a really unique way of seeing this information presented to you instead of hitting the more button. You were able to see everything really, really nicely in a nice graphic layout.
Ken, what do you think?
How I'm thinking, it's beautiful, it's gorgeous, but I'm really worried. You know, we've all heard the stories already of how companies will check your Facebook profile when they're hiring you and see what, you know, maybe silly, dirty little things that you have up there. Now, you know what? This is your resume. Now, there are some privacy controls there, and in theory, you can say what's private, what's public, who can see that stuff. But when you think about it, you're going to have now your entire life on there. Everything you do is going to be on there from birth to, you know, 5 seconds ago.
If you choose,
if you choose. But once again, how many times have we seen people usually set things and ignore them? And stuff might be popping up there, and you're not even thinking about it. What you know, you're taking pictures with your smartphone. Sometime 3 months ago, you set it, you know, for convenience to throw everything that you were taking a picture of up on your Facebook, and you forgot to turn it off. Yeah, that's your fault. But it's a flood of information, and I think people, the bulk of people don't take that much care with it, and so this has a lot of potential to cause a lot of people a lot of problems.
Also announced, Facebook apps can now tie back into your news feed, although they've changed the way the news feed works. We talked about that earlier this week. The news feed works differently. There's a main news feed that only shows you what has happened, what the most important things are that have happened since you last visited the page. And then there's that ticker on the right. So what apps can do is place things in the ticker. So, for instance, they use Spotify as an example. I'm listening to music on Spotify. I don't want to mess up everybody's news feed with every song I'm listening to, but the ticker is ephemeral. It just moves constantly and goes away. So that's an appropriate place to put songs that you're listening to, because you're not going to see everything that goes into the ticker. What'll go into the main feed are things if you make a playlist. That's something you could share in the news feed to let people know you've made a playlist on Spotify. Or if 7 or 8 of your friends are all listening to the same song at once, they can let you know that, like, hey, this song is trending. Spotify, just one example. They're partnering up with lots of music services like Rhapsody, like Mog, other services. I don't know, 8 to a dozen services there. They also are doing the same thing for video apps. They use Netflix as an example. Actually, Reed Hastings came out on stage and spoke as part of the keynote. They're going to be tying in Netflix streaming to Facebook. Games and lifestyle apps. Now, games we used to have in there, and again, games is going to work a little better now. Lifestyle apps, things like running. Let's say you have a running app that shows the route you run when you go training. You can now choose to have that show up in your ticker or in your news feed, so people can see what's going on. And a lot of this stuff ties into your timeline as well, so it's all captured there. You can add an app into the timeline so that you keep track of your whole training regimen, and you can go back and look at that and share it with your friends. Sarah, any creepy or any better? What's your take on?
I don't
on
think
the
it's
apps?
creepy. I worry that it's going to be noisy. I know that Facebook is well aware that apps got out of control the first time around. So they revoked a lot of access, so you didn't see all that app activity in your stream before, and now they're going to try to categorize it a little bit better. If Iyaz is listening to a song, that's in my ticker. I can choose to pay attention or not. You know, it'll kind of blow right by.
And Iyaz can choose what gets shared with you, and you can choose what kinds of things you see from Iyaz.
Right.
So there's good control there.
There's a ton of control, more than ever, but that's also always been. I don't think it's overall a detriment to a service, but it's always caused confusion at Facebook. And, you know, it's a lot of work on a user's part to decide, okay, well, Tom is really noisy in the app space. You're not really, but, you know, let's say that you were. Now I have to go, now I have to go in and make sure that I'm setting you at an appropriate level. So there is work to be done, but I guess the idea is that, hey, you've got a certain amount of friends. Once you do the work, then you should have a much more pleasant experience.
That's why I thought the redesign was actually pretty smart. With that ticker going by, for those little things, effectively Facebook is saying, that's not important. The stuff that's important is in the news feed. And if something really major happens around an event or a song, then yeah, we'll put it here. Instead of just spamming your friends, because I know other sites are out there are like basically coming up with game systems, so you could say, hey, I'm listening to this song, you listen too, and we'll get free tracks, so that kind of stuff. This is a lot easier by default. So you don't have to even go into the settings to go, I don't want to read everything about his activity. It's just in the feed.
Right.
Not to be the ticker, excuse me. I got to keep all these names straight.
It's the news feed and the noise feed now.
Yeah.
That seems to be the thing, right? Everyone is reacting to the ticker negatively. Even though it's supposed to be lightweight and out of the way, everybody wants to get rid of it. They want ways to turn it off.
Questions. They're trying to solve the problem that we all started running into 5 years ago. Was, wow, we can share, and we overshared. And it was like, okay, I'm taking a sip of coffee. You know, it's too much. And so, okay, they recognize that. Now we're just going to put it over here on the side, and you don't have to pay as much of attention to it. So then what is the value? Why even have it?
Because you get distracted and stay on Facebook longer. At least that's how it's working for me.
Yeah, well, the
Ooh,
question
a shiny
is,
thing.
all these people who are annoyed with the news ticker right now are like, I hate it, I don't want it there, and I definitely don't want more things in it. Will they get used to it and stop complaining, or will it continue to be a thorn in their side?
People said kind of the same thing about Google Plus and the notifications up at the top of like docs and everything, like, oh, this is going to distract me when I'm trying to work. But I think we all ended up kind of blocking it out a little bit.
Actually, I had the opposite reaction. I liked that part of Google Plus because it allowed me to keep up easier, and but eventually I forgot it was there.
Oh, I haven't even clicked the drop down in weeks because it just goes by too fast. It's not actually that helpful.
I had to get an extension to stop that because I kept clicking this red because it's a black bar and there's this red button up there. But back to the whole Facebook thing, I think people will get to the right-hand blindness after a while. I mean, this is all the way by the ads and like the events. Eventually, the stuff that scrolls by is what you're going to look at. The ticker itself stays static even though it does keep adding new status updates in there. So you're just not going to even notice it after a while.
I don't know. I think we'll get used to it. I think some people will never get used to it. And if they make a big enough stink, we have seen Facebook give in the past.
Reverse course.
It is really distracting. I mean, if it's so distracting that you're like, I cannot use Facebook anymore. This is not my cup of tea. I do not like this, you know, this river. Who knows? Maybe they'll at least give you an option to toggle on and off.
Or that you can change the verbiage from like to do not like the ticker, because they did that too today. They added the whole verbs to their like button. You can do that now, so you can search easier. Is that what it's for?
I thought that had to do with the apps, that you can now listen to music instead of just liking everything. They've added verbs, the ability to listen, the ability to watch, the ability to read.
Do not like.
Yeah, and Zuckerberg's point was, it's not that you have to like a book, you just have to read a book. I mean, that's the activity that you're sharing with your friends. Then you can talk about how much you liked it after the fact, but you don't have to like it just to say that it's something that you were active in. I think that's a good call. Some of the liking stuff was always weird to me. You know, liking someone's post about like getting out of the hospital. And it's like sometimes like just doesn't seem that appropriate.
Let's take a quick break and thank our sponsor, Gazelle. Most of us want the latest gadgets, but we can't afford the latest gadgets because we already spent all our money on our old gadgets. So here's a way for you to get a little money by getting rid of the old gadgets so you have room for the new gadgets and can afford them. Check them out at Gazelle. What they do is really a good thing. I've liked Gazelle since long before I ever worked at TWiT. They are a great way to get rid of old stuff. You go to their website, gazelle.com. You type in the gadget that you have, what condition it's in, whether you have the box, the wires, answer a few questions. They'll tell you, look, we can pay you this much for it. No hassle, no waiting around for somebody to call you or get in touch or email or verify. They give you an amount. You say yes or no. Then they send you money and you send them the gadget. It's that easy. They can pay you by check. They can pay you by PayPal. They can pay you by Amazon gift certificate. There's all kinds of ways to get paid. And that new iPhone, we haven't got an official announcement, but it is definitely in the offing. We're going to see it this fall. So if that's something you're into, or if maybe you just want to, you've got the old iPad and you want to get the iPad too, iPads are going between $227 and $304. Kindles between $28 and $66. iPhone 3G and 3GS are between $100 and $177. These are just a few of the things you can get. They've got hundreds of thousands of gadgets they can buy from you. And if they can't buy your gadget, if it's so old, like my old Motorola Razr, they'll recycle it for you. So check them out. Go to Gazelle.com, see how much your old gadgets are worth, and let Gazelle get rid of them for you. Let's move on to a crazy rumor. Netflix split has been interpreted many, many ways, but according to an analyst at
Wedbush Securities.
Wedbush Securities, thank you, Michael Pachter, the reason that Netflix is splitting Quickster and Netflix into two separate divisions is they're eventually going to split the company and sell Netflix streaming to Amazon.
What?
That's what I said when I saw this headline. I was like, that's just ridiculous. That's crazy talk. But listen to what his argument is. Amazon needs more streaming content. They've got a very basic streaming offering in Prime, and they obviously want to be offering you all kinds of media. That's why they bought Audible. That's why they have the Kindle. That's why they bought Shelfari. Like, they want to be in this media space. What better than to buy Netflix, which has a great streaming business? The reason Amazon wouldn't want Netflix right now is because the Quickster side, the DVD side, has so many distribution centers all over the country that they would have to pay tax everywhere they have a physical presence, right? And you know how viciously Amazon fights against paying any kind of tax.
Does not want to get into that ensnarlment.
So if you split Quickster off, then all you have left is the streaming business. And then you don't have this presence in all these states all around the country. And Netflix has deals. The problem Netflix is having is coming up with the cash to make new deals. Amazon's got tons of cash.
Amazon streaming is great. I mean, we've talked about this. You bought Breaking Bad,
yeah,
like a season of it on. It's great. It just doesn't have the catalog. I don't think it would be the worst idea in the world to merge the two. I still think this is a little bit crazy.
It definitely fits the Amazon profile. I can't see Reed Hastings want to give this up to Amazon.
Unless Hastings knows deep down we'll just never have the money to get these better deals for these better catalogs that we've promised these customers that we're working on.
Well, that reminds me of Tech TV. The reason they decided to sell Tech TV is they're like, we've gone as far as we can go being an indie. Yeah. We need a bigger company to help us leverage more distribution.
That just reminds me of when I think Ted Turner's brands were bought by, I think it was Time Warner at the time. As long as Ted Turner was given a very high position, he was able to control his own media, he would still go ahead with the deal. Unless Reed Hastings gets the same kind of control over the media empire that Amazon would be getting with Netflix, unless he gets a really high position where he can still control everything, I don't see why Netflix would want to do this other than, yeah, money would be great and everything, but you could get probably just another round of funding, you could open yourself up, you could sell some more shares or do something like that. But for Amazon, it makes all the sense in the world. They need this kind of penetration on set-top boxes, on televisions, everywhere, because Amazon keeps saying we're on hundreds of devices, and Netflix is like on thousands of devices, or like almost every device. So that kind of reach is something that you just can't create. Like what Netflix has done, I think is very hard to duplicate.
Ken, do you want to see Amazon and Netflix merge? If this isn't crazy?
I think there's a lot of potential in this. Think about the idea that, okay, we have Netflix apps everywhere. There's probably 8 or 10 different ways for me to watch Netflix in my home right now. Can you imagine if you could, after you finished watching an episode of something, just click one button and buy it? The DVD ships to you, or I think the tie-in from Amazon to suddenly be in every device would be fantastic, even more than they already are. But yeah, the mystery there is, what does Netflix get out of it? The money seems, maybe, but they always seemed to be so proud. They forged themselves out of nothing, and they are the leader in this market. Why would they tie themselves down to someone bigger and sort of walk into that shadow? It doesn't ring true to me.
The only thing that makes that sound sensible to me is leverage, right? Netflix goes to Starz, and Starz says, we want more money. And Netflix is like, well, what if we give you this? No, we want more money. And that's it. Netflix doesn't have anything else they can do. Amazon can say, well, okay, do you want your books carried at a special price? Do you want your other tie-ins? We've got other businesses we're involved in. And maybe Starz isn't the best example of that, but something like ABC Disney is a great example of like, hey, what about your publishing arm? What if we give you a better deal on the promotion of your books? What if we, strike you a deal on Audible stuff? Well, they've got other things they can throw into the mix to sweeten a deal that Netflix doesn't have. That's the only thing I could think of anyway. A couple other quick discussions. Let's get to stingrays are something designed to locate a mobile phone. They spoof a cell tower, and they're able to track mobile phones. Federal investigators, as well as local investigators, police investigators, have been using this to track suspects. This is starting to hit the courts because the defendants are like, hey, that's unreasonable search and seizure. You need a warrant for that. And right now, all that the FBI and local police are getting is a court order saying, look, this is just like a pen register. We can track what calls are made from what numbers without a warrant. We just need a court order. That's what we're doing here. So this is starting to go to the courts. In fact, on Thursday in the U.S. District Court of Arizona, Judge David G. Campbell is set to hear a request by a man named Daniel David Rigmaiden, who is facing fraud charges, to have information about the government's secret techniques disclosed to him. That's kind of the first battle here. And this is a question, because being able to track a cell phone gives you more information. It gives you location information that a pen register doesn't give you. Just knowing what calls are made from what numbers doesn't necessarily give you the location information. But it is short of a wiretap where you actually hear the content of the calls. The Stingray thing does not give you the content of the calls.
This Fourth Amendment thing reminds me of the whole, when Google was taking packet data from all these Wi-Fi points. And the question was this wiretapping, or was this more like getting a radio communication? So this is that same kind of like, what's the line on this one?
I feel like this is different because that was unencrypted information that was being broadcast into the world. The Stingray is going a little farther than the Wi-Fi data capture. It's saying, I'm going to pretend I'm a cell tower.
That's what there's a continuum of what is protected. So like it's closer. The question is, it's not wiretapping just yet. It's not exactly wiretapping. So it's where is it?
I mean, theoretically, with landlines anyway, if somebody's making a call from a number, you know they're at that number. So there is some location information tied to that. Anybody worried about this?
Well, obviously the laws need to catch up, and in the current climate, I get worried about any new laws being made that will tend to err on the side of not the security of individuals, but of the government's ability to gather what information it can in pursuit of the greater security. So it's worrying. And I think part of the problem is every law, everyone tries to look at these things in reference to older technologies. We look at this in terms of, well, it's not a wiretap like a old landline phone call. We're in a whole new world here. We need to decide how we are going to deal with everything we do basically floating through the air and able to be sucked down by someone with an antenna.
It's that same story over and over. This is different than what these laws were written for, and how are we going to deal with that? Absolutely. All right, finally, if you want to know a lot more about HTML5, if you're confused about what it can do, I highly recommend reading this interview that Massively did with Ben Adams and James Nisawan. Massively is the MMO section of Joystick. Nisawan and Adams are CTO and CEO of Illyriad Games. That's a game that is done on the web for free, but then they make their money off selling you things in the game. It's a profitable new model a lot of people are pursuing. In this interview, they predict the death of Flash and the rise of HTML5. They say the major advantages that box set or download games have had over browser-based games are local storage and direct access to the graphics and audio engines. Those barriers are being smashed apart by HTML5. If you don't do it, your competitors will, and they'll be making games that work identically on more device platforms, on more browsers, on more operating systems. So Flash, because it doesn't work on every device, and downloads, because your download only works on certain certain operating system, they say that's obsolete. Within a few years, everything is going to be done in the browser.
Just yesterday, Adobe was all excited saying, Flash 11, and we have Zynga supporting us, and EA loves us.
Ahead.
HTML,
Don't worry about it.
HTML5, I mean, a lot of, Microsoft said with Windows 8, forget it. You're not going to get plugins on the Metro side of IE, but we will support Flash this way. I mean, if tablets keep taking off and they keep shunning Flash, I mean, eventually you have to move over. But then again, even Adobe's aware of this. They will make tools to make their Flash applications move to HTML5, no problem.
Now, Ken, I know you've got to get going. Do you need to bow out now, or can you hang for a little longer?
As long as Dr. Kiki's okay with running a little late, we can do that. Or if I need to go, I could go now and come back.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and get to the news fuse. CNET reporting the FBI arrested a 23-year-old Arizona man today on charges of stealing data from Sony Pictures Entertainment earlier this year. Cody Andrew Crestinger of Phoenix was indicted September 2nd by a federal grand jury on charges of conspiracy and unauthorized impairment of a protected computer. Meanwhile, Fox News reporting that a hacker who is believed to be a homeless man was arrested in San Francisco on charges of participating in attacks allegedly carried out by the activist group Anonymous on Santa Cruz County government websites, and that search warrants were also being executed in New Jersey, Minnesota, and Montana. So a bunch of hackers getting rounded up.
HTC is partnering with Dropbox. Any phone running Sense 3.5 will get an extra 3 gigabytes of storage from Dropbox. Free accounts already give you 2 gigabytes, so you get a total of 5 gigabytes free. So now you have another reason to pick up that really nice plum-colored HTC Rime, what I like to call the lady phone, because it's actually the only phone running Sense 3.5 and until other phones get updated.
Apparently, ladies like storage.
Yeah.
Tuesday, researchers showed that they could break commonly used SSL and TLS encryption using a tool called Beast. Google is updating Chrome to protect users with the dev version of the browser already patched. Beast is able to break SSL TLS by performing a plain text recovery attack. The Chrome fix would be to split a message into fragments, which reduces an attacker's control over the plain text about to be encrypted by feeding a tool like Beast unexpected info.
Adobe has patched Flash to protect users from cross-site scripting attacks. Back in June, Google pointed out the flaw in Flash, but Adobe just got around to patching Flash yesterday. Google has already patched the version of Flash included in Chrome, but now it's patched for everybody else.
NTT Docomo is developing a phone with interchangeable cases with built-in sensors to measure things like alcohol and body fat. The Japanese phone operator expects its users to be most interested in the case that can measure radiation levels, since, of course, the nation has become really concerned with that since the earthquake earlier this year. Docomo will demo these cases at the Combined Exhibition of Advanced Technology next month.
Congratulations, Swindon!
Yay!
Swindon. You're the home to the first hydrogen refueling station in the UK. The station itself is located in a Honda manufacturing facility in Swindon. It is the product of a partnership of Forward Swindon Economic Initiative and gas company BOC. So congratulations.
Way to go, Swindon. Users of the next version of Google TV will be able to watch full-length programs from TNT and TBS. Of course, there is a catch. It uses TV everywhere, which means it's not everywhere. It actually means that to access the programs, you already have to have a cable subscription. Even if you can get stuff over the air, forget it. You can't get TNT and TBS over the air. So there you go.
And you need a Google TV, too.
Well, there you go.
And it's a different TNT than this TNT.
Yes, it's the Turner Network
On
television.
Google TV, you can get TNT. This TNT, I think, pretty easily.
Pretty easily, yeah. You can get us anywhere. We're great. Twitch TV sells TNT. Cricket Wireless is going nationwide. Leap Wireless, the parent company of Cricket, has signed a deal with Sprint to bring coverage where Leap normally doesn't. Leap has already had a presence in 34 states with about 7 million subscribers. You'll be able to grab Cricket phones all over the United States in places like Best Buy and Walmart.
A leaked Sprint document said that the company would start capping hotspot data at 5 gigabytes. Sprint has since confirmed the change, and it will go into effect October 2nd. No one who already has unlimited data will be allowed to continue that plan. So everybody who has that will have that cap, and this is going to go into effect again October 2nd.
Although it doesn't apply to people using tablets, right? They still get the unlimited?
Just the hotspots have the cap. So unless you have a hotspot on your tablet.
That's how I read it. That's the loophole. Use a tablet.
Use a tablet.
Go to prison.
Yeah, exactly. Took the words right out of my mouth. Let's check the randomizer. What's going to be spit out? You thought the speed of light was the law. Well, not anymore. Tomorrow, researchers from CERN will be releasing experimental results that suggest, well, okay, they just suggest, it's not for sure, that neutrinos, the lightest particles we're aware of, may in fact show evidence that they move slightly faster than the speed of light. Dr. Kiki is getting ready for Dr. Kiki Science Hour over there. We thought we'd call on her to explain the caveats here. Kiki, thanks for joining us.
Hey, howdy.
So,
good to be here.
We'll try to release Ken Denmead from his indenture to us as soon as possible so you can be on Science Hour later.
On the Science Hour. I love it.
But in the meantime, tell us, first of all, what are the things that could make this not be true? What have they found, and how do we tell if it's actually true that neutrinos are going faster than light?
So what they found so far is they shot a beam of neutrinos to this opera detector that they have in Gran Sasso Mountain in Italy. The beam of neutrinos arrived 60 nanoseconds faster earlier than would have been predicted if they were just traveling the speed of light. So they're faster. The margin of error, they've been checking their results for months and months and months and months and months and months, and they can't explain them away. They have a 6 sigma significance factor, which means that it's about 6 times their margin of error. So
the margin of error is something around 10 nanoseconds.
10
but since they got
nanoseconds.
their 60 nanoseconds faster, even if they're off by 10 seconds, it's still 50 seconds faster.
Nanoseconds.
Nanoseconds.
Little tiny
Thank you.
bits of seconds.
Right.
Like billionths of a second. Yeah, so it's faster than the speed of light, which... Why would that happen? And so really, they've been checking and double checking and trying to negate this result. However, all of the data so far, it still has this significance factor that suggests that it could be true. So what they're doing is they're asking the Fermi Lab in Batavia, Illinois, to run a similar experiment to see what kind of results they get and see if they can be explained away. Because nobody wants the speed of light to change, because it would really kind of muck things up in physics generally.
Well, could we change the constant to be the speed of neutrinos?
Yeah, I guess so. We could, I mean, everything.
It's only 50 nanoseconds.
Only 50 nanoseconds, but that would affect. It would affect everything. The way that we understand the speed of everything, the relation of everything. The thing is, mass time. It has to do with the mass of an object,
right,
and the speed that it can travel.
E equals mc squared.
E equals mc squared. So neutrinos shouldn't be able to go the speed of light. If they have mass, which they do, they should go slower than the speed of light.
My favorite guess at explaining this, if it ends up to be true experimentally, is that the neutrinos are skipping through another large dimension and taking a shortcut so that they're actually not going faster.
So the neutrinos have their own personal wormhole.
Yeah.
Nice.
I like it.
I think there's a guy standing out in the parking lot squirting neutrinos a little bit earlier every time.
Yeah,
he's
maybe
just pranking them.
Maybe it's some kind of, we've got these particle accelerators, big giant magnets that get these particles going at really massive speeds. Maybe it's just some kind of accelerator for neutrinos that we don't know is there. They just happen to be there.
Well, thanks, Kiki.
Yeah.
I know you'll probably talk about this more in the Science Hour, I'm betting.
Yep, there's more discussion to be had all afternoon and evening about this.
All right, check that out. Dr. Kiki Science Hour, available as a podcast at twit.tv, and also if you're watching live right after Tech News Today. Let's check the calendar.
Starting today, you can get the $99. I say that because you also need a 2-year contract, and then there's an online rebate involved. But $99 LTE-capable Pantech Breakout from Verizon. This is Android 2.3, has a 5-megapixel rear camera, VGA front-facing camera, 720p HD video capture. $99. The UK is getting OnLive starting today. This is the cloud gaming service. It's been in the US since June. And OnLive says the rest of Europe is going to get streaming game functionality very soon. They're testing it all over the place. Nokia's Migo-powered N9 is shipping in Sweden tomorrow. That's Friday, September 23rd.
The yummiest dying operating system you'll ever see.
Nokia Migo phone.
Yeah, that we'll never see. Anonymous has announced that September 24th at high noon, I don't, East Coast time? I guess,
guess.
probably.
And
We'll
tumbleweed.
begin. I love that. Very good. Began a day of vengeance in the U.S. Doesn't sound good. They're planning a series of cyber attacks against various targets, including Wall Street, corrupt banking institutions, things like that. Oh, and the New York City Police Department. Anonymous. Look for that at high noon on the 24th. Finally, the FCC has published its net neutrality rules to the Federal Register. The rules are scheduled to take effect November 20th, which gives a lot of time for lawsuits. Here's the thing, that several telcos tried to sue the FCC after they just announced guidelines last year, but they were thrown out of court because they had to wait for the rules to actually be published before they were allowed to sue. Now they have been published, so we've got this window of lawsuit before they take effect.
Let the lawsuits begin.
Yeah, we're going to need a new graphic for that.
All right, Ken, we're going to definitely let you go so you can go do your things and get back in time for the Science Hour. Thanks so much for joining us, though. Let folks know about Geek Dad and where they can find what you do online.
Geek Dad is all about raising Geek Generation 2.0, being parents in the age of technology, and figuring out how we're raising our kids in our own geeky image. That's at geekdad.com or wired.com/geekdad. There's a companion site, geekmom.com, and you can find all the stuff I'm doing, especially the books I've got. I've got one coming out in November at geekdadbook.com.
Ken, great having you on. We'll definitely want to have you back if you'll join us again.
Fantastic. I'd love to.
All right. Take care, man.
Thanks, Ken.
See you guys.
Cheers. Time for you to duck, because it's incoming.
Wow.
John from Northville, Michigan writes in and says, for Tom to say that Microsoft is only doing a search engine to take a shot at Google is absurd. To which I said, I never said that. To which Iyaz said, no,
Yes,
you
you
said
did.
pretty much exactly that. But I didn't mean they were only doing the search engine to take a shot at Google. Anyway, John's got a good point. He says this is not the first time that Microsoft has taken a short-term gamble, losing money on Bing in this case, in the hopes of it paying off long-term. Ever heard of the Xbox? Yeah. Microsoft spent over $1 billion on the original Xbox, gambling on their ability to create a viable competitor in the home console market, which would pay off long term. That gamble is paying off now that the 360, with accompanying Live and all of its services, is such a success. Well, except for Japan, but nobody's perfect. Thanks, John. That's a good point. That I shouldn't have implied that Bing was only meant to get back at Google. But I do think that Microsoft is trying to take a bite out of Google's ass with Bing.
They are taking a bite out.
And they are. They're just not making any money off of it.
Yeah.
Yet. That's what John says. Yet.
I think they want to take a bite of their market share. I don't know about the other thing. Anyway, another email from Steve Edwards in the UK. One benefit of the move by Windows 8 is to use UEFI rather than the BIOS is that it will be I can't say this. It will then enable booting from hard drives larger than 2 terabytes. BIOS doesn't support this. Hard disk capacity is only going one way, and it doesn't make sense to artificially enforce hard disk makers to produce smaller, less than 2 terabyte drives to enable PCs using BIOS to be able to boot. Just as 2 pence, as you said it.
Yeah, no more workarounds. That's awesome. Good stuff, Steve. Thanks for writing in and let us know that.
You wrote it in much more eloquently than I read it, so thanks for that.
Thanks to everybody who submitted stories on our Reddit. TechNewsToday.reddit.com is the place to make your opinion on what stories we should cover heard. Chagaze, PC Guy 8088, Sub-Zero 721, Canostic, MacBites, JX Mitchell, Geekin, Draconos, Captain Kipper, and more. All submitted stories today. You can too, or you can just vote on them. TechNewsToday.reddit.com. Thanks to Ken Denmead, or whatever he's called. He's gone.
It's contagious.
He won't know.
Call him in.
You're next, Lane.
Ken Denmead for joining us from the Geek Dad blog. And thanks for Dr. Kiki for helping us understand how neutrinos will go back in time and kill my grandmother. We will be available on the web, twit.tv/TNT. You can email us, tnt@twit.tv, or give us a call, 260-TNT-SHOW. Most of us will be back tomorrow, except for Sarah Lane.
I'm going wine tasting.
Yay.
Good for you. Jason Howell will be here. Iyaz Akhtar will be here. And Darren Kitchen will be here, too. We'll see you then.